行くぞはっ
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Sporgo, and today we're going to talk about BS Goenitz, an absolutely amazing character. And let's just take in how awesome this guy looks, right? Look at that sadistic look on his face. I think that pretty much says it all. And I actually really love this red theme that's going on with Goenitz, especially since the fact that he has insane amounts of bleed in his kit. It's just fitting that goes along with his outfit and the red tornadoes that's surrounding him. He looks pretty fantastic, I gotta say. And Goenitz really is a terrific character, and I don't think that really comes as a surprise to anybody. I got him leveled up the same as what I had Leona in the last video. You know, he's just at 1 star, but he's got this crazy leadership with the increased red element fighter attack by 65%. So this is an insane self-buffing leadership. Freaking nuts. And then his core effects gives him 30% PG rate. He gives him increased damage by 18% on critical hit. And he, just like Leona, he is a critting machine. This guy does an insane amount of hits. So this increased damage by 18% on critical hit is actually very massive, especially for a character like this. The increased attack increase, the bleed attack damage increase, which is awesome considering he's already got quite a bit of bleed in his skills. The blast skill damage increase. He's got the critical rate increase, just like Leona. Along with also he's going to get more critical rate increase from his 3PG. And then he has a 50% chance to apply fear to the attacker for 2 seconds when attacked. So this is pretty wild, a little bit different than Leona's. Like, he's got to be attacked. So this is a nice little protective thing that he's going to have in PvP, and this could even be useful in PvE on a 20-second cooldown. And then it increases active skill damage on a bleeding target by 80%. Now, Leona gets this increased active skill damage on a burning target by 110%, whereas his is 80%, so he doesn't get quite as much of a buff as her. And then he's got a 70% chance to reset active skill cooldowns upon landing a hit on a shocked target. And the only way he applies shock is actually by using his core finisher or his default. And usually whenever he does that anyways, his skill cooldowns will be almost reset by then. And then he has Now Pray to God, which casts a shield that absorbs damage for 7 seconds when using an active skill, and then removes the shield, right? The shield is an amazing effect, and I really love these kinds of effects where, you know, it's like K and Kula, where you don't have it's not reliant on an HP pool. Like, he's going to have the shield no matter what HP pool he's at, as long as he's off this cooldown, which is awesome, especially for an attack type character. Now, I will say that in the testing that I've done so far, he does have terrific survivability, which I will show today. But like, say in Guild Raid, his survivability isn't as good as, say, like someone like Leona. Leona's a defensive character, and she's just a lot tankier than him when it comes to this. I mean, but for an attack type character, his survivability is actually quite nuts. In fact, I would say probably the best survivability in the game as far as attackers are concerned. Quite nuts, so my friends. And then of course he's got the boss syndrome core effect where he gains power. Then he has the increased target damage received by 28%. This is something else to note about him. You know, like compared to someone like Leona. Leona has an increased target damage received from her core passive as well as in her skills, whereas Goenitz is only getting it in his skill here, in his first skill. But he does apply bleed, which is really nice. And then he decreases HP recovery by 80%. So whenever he's attacking someone in PvP, it's going to be harder for them to heal, which is actually really powerful. And then he has hyper armor in his second skill. And then this also has a 60% chance to remove super armor. And it's limited to when airborne. And this is a really annoying skill for people to deal with, especially in PvP. I mean, Goenitz is actually quite insane in PvP. I mean, really, any more of these characters, they just get stronger and stronger. And then the third skill, increased attack buff here, and then he's got deal additional damage equal to 20% of attack landing on a bleeding target. So he gets a nice little buff on bleeding targets for his third skill. And the thing about Goenitz that I want you to notice is, you know, his cooldowns are around, you know, 10.7, 10.3, 10.6 seconds, right? Well, his cooldowns are similar to Leona's, but a big difference between them is Leona's got that core passive where she can actually decrease skill cooldown by half a second, right? And that does make a difference when you're spamming your skills. You can't spam Goenitz quite as fast as Leona, and that does make a difference over time as far as doing your damage. But he does have shock damage on his core finisher, which is pretty nice, and this is a lasting dot effect. And the thing about the core finisher that I'm a little disappointed with is the fact that it can be interrupted by Guild Raid, right? I mean, it can be interrupted by Rugal, which I'm imagining is going to be interrupted by Geese as well. And that really sucks. If this thing didn't get interrupted, it would make him so much better, because if it does get interrupted, that means that, you know, Nightmare Geese, especially on Lunatic, can do an insane amount of damage to you. Especially like someone like Goenitz. Like if he doesn't have his shield up, man, he will take a tremendous amount of damage. And as far as imprint stones, it's the same as what I did with Leona. Same thing, you know, they're going to give you that PG rate stone for the first stone. Definitely want to go with attack stones for this character. And I just gave him a double attack with extra bleed damage, because we're actually going to get 22% from this stone versus 20% attack from the BS stone. He doesn't need PG rate. He's already got 30% PG rate in his core. It doesn't take this character long at all to build his PG, because he does a crazy amount of hits. And then again, of course, the other two stones, you just want to use attack stones. And then his cores are completely unlocked. And I am going to be running an Akane set, the same as what I did with Leona, just regular cooldown cards, no transcendent cards, nothing like that. And Goenitz's 3PG, I mean, it's got this increased attack by 10%. It's got this critical rate by 3.6%. That is adding on to that 3.2% from his core effect. And this is another reason why he crits so much on top of doing just all the hits that he does. This is an insane skill. And just like Leona, his 3PG does a crazy amount of damage. It is nuts. Oh, my friends. And his affinity is at level 10. I really am impressed with Goenitz. I mean, he is a very, very powerful character. But I'm telling you, like in Guild Raid, you'll notice that he can take a lot of damage, especially if that shield isn't ready to go. Now, because he only has bleed, we're going to have to test him. We're going to test him on expert, just like we did with Leona. And we're going to use Lady Geese as a striker, right? So I actually just pre-recorded a couple runs for y'all to watch today. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up right now. All right. Now, check this out, right? Now, we're going to do the same thing like we did with Leona, right? We're playing on expert. We're just going to use Lady Geese for that darkness. We start with the second skill, get our hyper armor up, and you can see how fast that he can shred that meter. It doesn't take long. We're just applying some shock damage. And it really is a bummer that default can be interrupted. That kind of sucks, man. But this skill here is nuts. I mean, this thing does an insane amount of hits. Just look how many times you'll see that critical hit text pop up whenever he's doing that damn thing. Now watch this. We'll apply Lady Geese, and look at how fast that meter melts. I mean, Goenitz has got some power. He's got some serious, serious power. But you can see we've already taken quite a bit of damage. It doesn't take long at all. If he doesn't have that shield up, you know, he doesn't have a decreased damage received or anything like that, man, he can take a tremendous amount of damage very, very quick. However, because the shield, you know, doesn't have an HP pool, like, especially like in Immortal Dungeons, as you'll see in a later run, his survivability is actually tremendously good. It is wonderful. But man, in Guild Raid, I mean, look, I mean, he can take a lot. It doesn't take long. Now, keep in mind, though, you know, this is just a level, I mean, this is just a 1-star character, right? He's just level 10. Obviously, when you have him, you know, maybe like A2, A3, A4, A5 especially, you're going to have a lot more HP. He's going to have a lot better survivability then. That's going to make a huge difference. If you even have HP stones on him, that's going to make a big difference in his survivability. So these are things to take into account if you're trying to make him a little bit tankier. I mean, you could even give him a decreased damage received stone if you really wanted to. Although I wouldn't recommend it. I would really just go with a gold imprint stone for the first stone. Or the BS stones for all of them. And the second and third stone, definitely a BS stone. I mean, Goenitz has got power, man. He's got some serious power. Honestly, on expert mode at level 10, he puts it out. He puts out this damage. It's pretty nuts. This 3PG doesn't get interrupted, by the way, either, which is really nice. But again, I just wish his default didn't get interrupted. That's kind of the thing that just kind of irks me a little bit. I was kind of like, because when I see that it can be interrupted, it's just like, and yeah, Rugal went an iframe there, so unfortunately, we, our skill got interrupted or got canceled more or less. So we lost a lot of damage, unfortunately, because of that. But that's kind of typical with a lot of supers and 3PGs when you're facing Guild Raid. Whenever these guys go into iframes, that happens. And you can see the amount of damage we've taken so far, man. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. Something else to notice is whenever you're doing his default, as he's coming out of the default, you want to hit your hyper armor as quick as possible. And remember that his active skills can have a 70% chance of getting reset when you're applying shock damage. So it's pretty interesting that they chose that design choice for him. Man, I love this skill. I really love both his default and his 3PG. I think these things are awesome. And, I mean, look at my HP pool, man. 2,300 HP. I mean, we've taken a lot. We've taken a lot. And really, you know, I'm just trying to get to around 300 million, which we will get to. Get him, Goenitz, get him. Goenitz is repeating the taking out of the eye. Woo! I mean, when he's got the shield, he doesn't take any damage at all. But I'm telling you, when that shield's gone, because he has no decreased damage received, he has no other forms of survivability. I mean, in Guild Raid, whenever they do an explosion, they are freaking dead. And you can see we hit 300 million on expert mode, right? I mean, this is a game mode where he's not even applying the right dot. So keep that in mind. But, you know, whenever we face Nightmare Geese, and we will do some testing against Nightmare Geese, again, that's default, can be interrupted, and that's where you're going to want to apply that shock. So we'll see how it plays out. I do think he's still going to be really great for Guild Raid. I've seen some insane runs for this character in Guild Raid. I mean, seriously. He's really, in Guild Raid, you're really going to want to play the character. I think, you know, unlike Leona with the whole spamming thing, because she's just a lot tankier. I think with Goenitz, you're going to want to use his 3PG more often. You're going to want to be using his ultimate more often in Guild Raid, because that's going to spread out the gaps as far as the cooldowns on your shield, and it's actually going to increase your survivability on top of having the iframe from doing the 3PG. So you might have to play him a little bit different in Guild Raid than, say, someone like Leona. Now we're going to do a little run in Rock. Now this is actually very interesting because Goenitz is a red type. Now I could have used Goenitz's leadership, but I wanted that PG rate, and I'm going to do a 500 million run with the very first team that you're looking at. And we're actually going to highlight a couple little things here. One, we're going to be using K's newest 3PG on this version of K. Now I could have used SSK, but I just wanted to show a 3PG on K13 here, which is absolutely amazing. Just running a K set, and then we got the imprint stones with the PG rate stone right here. And we have double attack in both of those that you can actually get from Guild Raid. Max out capsules. And then Maisie here, you know, she's going to have just a Noah set on her, regular cooldown cards, or 3PG. We're going to have that burn. Burn's very important for Rock to allow you to do a lot more damage to this opponent. And then, of course, Goenitz with the exact same build at 1 star. And Rock, in my opinion, is the hardest Immortal dungeon boss we have. I mean, there's an argument for Immortal Vulcan. He's pretty tough too. But I think Rock just hits harder than anybody. This guy does insane damage. And this is where we actually get to show Goenitz survivability, because here, his hyper armor is actually going to prevent him from taking damage. So let's go ahead and pull that up. All right, here we go. Now this is where that survivability is really going to come in handy. This is where that shield's going to do really well for him. And you know, as always, you know, when you're doing these runs, you're switching between your characters. I mean, there's actually a multitude of characters. I mean, some people are using, instead of Mai, they'll use Karate because he's a red. And red does have an advantage against Immortal Rock. They're just going to do a lot more damage. And honestly, you know, for one team to hit 500 million and just have a 1-star character on there is pretty nuts. And you'll notice we're going to be just doing their 3PGs throughout the entire run. Now look at how often this guy crits. Man, it's just over and over and over and over. Wow. crazy, crazy power. I mean, look at this, right? You know, we're 16 seconds in, and we've already hit around 110 million. Yeah, it don't take long. It don't take long at all. Just imagine if my Goenitz was actually, you know, A3, right? And had all 3 imprint stones on him, right? I mean, just imagine if I was using that new card set that's available for the Volume 4 characters, right? That would make a big difference. Which, by the way, I did have all 3 of those cards, so I will be doing some testing with those cards in another video, which is pretty sick. I mean, these guys, I mean, Goenitz, like, I mean, look at his life, look at his HP bar, it's almost maxed out. And this is what I mean, like, in this game mode, right, because your hyper armor is actually effective, whereas in Guild Raid, where they do their explosion, it's not effective, right? They just bypass that thing, right? They still can do a lot of damage to you if his shield isn't up. But in something like Immortal Dungeon, it's a different world. Your hyper armor does protect you from their attacks. So Goenitz's survivability goes, I mean, it just goes through the roof in here. Because now you're going to have your iframe during your super or your core super, or you're going to have your hyper armor, or you're going to have your shield. I mean, one of those things is going to be going on at one time. And now your survivability is just going to be that much better on top of all the damage that Goenitz can deal. Right? I mean, and I could have used this leadership. I mean, I actually kind of wonder if I could have done this with Goenitz's leadership. You know, 65% increase to red elements. That is very, very powerful. But I always like having the PG rate because I like being able to do my supers more often. And as you can see, like, you really don't need the first imprint stone that they give Goenitz, you know, with the extra 15% PG rate. Again, it would come in handy. Like, and that's something else to keep in mind. Like, say for like this first team, you have Mai and you have her original first stone, which gives you 50% PG rate, right? That's going to give her 45% PG rate because she has 30% PG rate in her core. Well, Goenitz is the same situation. The new BS stone gives them 15% PG rate. So if you have Goenitz and Mai on the team and you put Goenitz in the leadership, they're both going to have 45% PG rate if you're running the original stone for them in that circle slot. So you don't even need a PG rate leadership, right? You really wouldn't even need one. And that might have been, you know, what Netmarble was going for. I mean, that might have been what they were going for, but I wanted more attack. I wanted more bleed on Goenitz. I wanted to make him a little bit stronger as far as the attack. I mean, I'm more about that than anything. And as you can see in this run, they're going to do amazing. You can get K13 completely for free. He's always available in the game. So you got a great red leadership. But yeah. But you could do that, right? You could just use their original PG rate stones. Just put Goenitz in the leadership. Right? Maisy's taking a little bit of damage, even though she's got decreased damage received on one of her skills. I mean, Rock's tough, but I mean, look at the score. Putting it to it, my friends. Putting it to it. I mean, they're destroying this thing. I mean, Goenitz has taken a lot of damage, but this is a pretty long fight. And he's still hanging in there. No problem. And honestly, I'm not really too worried about trying to switch him back in and use his hyper armor, because he does have that shield, right? And there you go. We had time to spare and hit that 500 million, no problem. Just insane, right? Just absolutely nuts. Oh, but I really think Goenitz is going to shine probably even more in the Dungeon of Trials. I mean, this is where he's really going to shine, because his default, even though it can get interrupted in Guild Raid, it won't get interrupted by a spider robot. So you can apply that shock damage here. He's actually going to be really good for this. You can guarantee it, especially with the amount of damage that he has. He's going to be amazing for this, because he's going to have great survivability with the shield, the hyper armor. He's got all the extra damage, the bleed, and then he's also going to have the shock. So you're going to want to be using his default in Spider Robot. Maybe we'll do another video with him, but you know, unfortunately, I'm probably only going to be able to get him to A2. I'm not going to be able to get him to A3. I don't think. I really don't want to spend any more money in this banner, but Goenitz is insane, and I'm loving him. I think he's a freaking fantastic character. Definitely worth pulling for. Definitely worth having that 3PG for the regular Goenitz that's always available in the game, or even Mecha Goenitz, you know, for, you know, doing a low-cost clear in the Team Relay dungeons. But he is a bleeding god. So let me know what y'all think about BS Goenitz, and I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT+7 time. The link will be in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.